good design is definitely executed with thought and strategy. For us at Nikos Media, how we approach that is our philosophy in human-centered design. What we do is we love to go ahead and take a look from the person's experience, right? Whether that's an employee or a visitor or a potential client, we want to see things from their eyes, right? And how they would experience it. And so we design and evolve our ideas around that.
Welcome to Future Fuzz, the digital marketing podcast.
Welcome into Future Fuzz, the digital marketing podcast. I'm Quinn, and today we're talking about building a creative office environment. I can't speak today. Joining us for that conversation is Santiago Martinez. He is a partner and CMO at Nikos Media. Santiago, welcome to Future Fuzz.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm happy to have you too. So tell us what Nikos is, what it's about.
Definitely. So Nikos Media is a creative agency with over 2 decades of hands-on experience in design and brand storytelling. We specialize in transforming ideas into visual narratives, just trying to captivate and convert. That's the name of the game.
And so what are some of the things that looks like then? I mean, you guys get a project, you get your hands on it, you go do the thing, you knock it out of the park. What are some of those kinds of end products that you generate?
Yeah, definitely. So it's from brand identity systems to immersive physical environments. So we love anything related to marketing and that's creative. So that's our little hotspot right there.
Yeah. And I mean, I love it and it's one of those things that we really don't dive into the show. And on some level, it's natural, right? Like, it's digital marketing is what we tend to do on the show. But I think it's so important to talk about the physical sometimes because we're doing creative work and digital work in physical spaces. And if you're not taking into consideration what those places are like and how that impacts you, and if it's an office environment, how that impacts the people that are coming in and doing business with you, then you're missing a big part of the picture. And so, like, I'll give you an example. I was in Tokyo just maybe 2 months ago, and I was there for my honeymoon, and I'm walking around downtown, and some of the buildings there, the architecture for like Viore, for example. I mean, just this big, beautiful structure. It's really intricate, and you can just see it, and you get a feeling from the jump of like, wow, this thing is so intentional. It stands out. It's grabbing my attention. It's presenting a status to it. And honestly, I didn't know what Viore really was beforehand. I'm uncultured swine, but when I saw it, I'm like, okay, I got to check this out. It grabbed my attention, and like I don't know. It's just one of those things that I've found interesting, but never really grasped in a full way. So for you to live in this kind of space and be able to do this all the time, like, how do you begin to approach a space when you're going to initiate one of these projects? But how does that start?
Definitely. That's a great question because I think good design is definitely executed with thought and strategy. The reason why I say that is like your experience in that area. There's psychological aspects to it on the subconscious level that you probably don't even recognize. And that's the beautiful part about it, is because the average person doesn't really realize that. But, people in marketing and psychology, that's what they have to focus on because that's what actually influences people. So those little nuances of, shine and matte and color and perfection, and they all play a part to it. But for us at Nikos Media, how we approach that is our philosophy in human-centered design. What we do is we love to go ahead and take a look from the person's experience, right? Whether that's an employee or a visitor or a potential client. We want to see things from their eyes, right? And how they would experience it. And so we design and evolve our ideas around that.
Yeah. So, I mean, what are some of the things that you might experience then? Because if for me, like, I'm totally oblivious to these things. I don't even know how to begin to look for it. So you're in the customer's mindset, or you're in like a visitor's mindset and going through a place. What are some of the things that you might see, notice, feel?
Definitely. Well, for example, your office is the physical embodiment of your brand, right? It tells the story before anyone says a word. So interior branding reinforces like culture, gives employees pride, visually communicates company values. It also has subcategories to that. It boosts morale, belonging, it increases productivity. So there's a lot of back end to it, a lot of ROI behind it. Um, I don't know if I answered your question or
I
kind of
mean,
went off on a tangent.
a little bit because there's just some of those things that let me tell you the silliest example. Did you ever watch Bar Rescue?
No.
Oh my God. Okay. Bar Rescue is like absolute trash in the best way. So the whole thing is John Taffer is like this established restaurateur, and he comes in, he yells at everybody that's on the staff, tells them they suck and that they're doing a bad job of running the place. And then he strips the thing down and rebuilds it and rebrands it. And there was this one time where he was building a bar where he wanted like singles to mix, right? Was part of the angle. And he made it so that the dance floor was, in order to get there, you had to walk through a very narrow gate. And the idea was that people had to pass each other in a tight space and make eye contact around the dance floor. And I was like, I would have never considered something like that in a million years. That's kind of a crazy thing. I don't know if it was ultimately a good idea, but like thinking about that kind of level of attention to detail of somebody interacting with the space is like crazy. And I just can't imagine how deep that rabbit hole can go.
Definitely. It definitely goes pretty deep because it's all left to your imagination and how you can bring that to tie the strategy with the storytelling and all together, right? It's kind of funny that your story reminded me of a story my dad told me a long time ago before I got into marketing. He's like, "Hey son, I read a story." He's like, and it was about this hotel business owner that his elevator was really slow and he was getting complaints from his people, from his tenants or people that were renting rooms. And so he's like, he hired somebody. He's like, "I need help with this. I don't have the money to spend." He's like, "But you can do whatever you want within this budget." The guy goes over there, sits there for a whole day watching people go up and in and out of the elevator. And he's like, "All right, I got an idea." So what he did is he took one big mirror and put it in front of the elevator. So when people are standing waiting, they're turning around, looking at themselves, fixing themselves. So it kills time. And I was like, oh my God, it's such a beautiful idea, simplistic, to kind of just curve around that hump until he gets money to fix his elevator.
Yeah, no, that is such a cool thing, and that's the whole thing, right? It's human interaction. How do people in these spaces see things, feel things? Because sometimes you walk into a place and it just feels depressing, and like and
Yes.
and you think about it from this level of like sales, right? It's I run this business and I'm doing all of this work and I get somebody that's a big lead or it's a big partner and they finally come to our place and they're in the door and we've had this great relationship and they walk in and they're just like, oh my God, this is a hellhole. And I can't you just like it's one of those things that it can get brushed aside and it can negate the work. And I think that's what's so fascinating because for me, like, it sounds like for you as well, there's the creativity is everything. And when you're in a space that supports creativity, you will be more creative. Or if you're in a space that doesn't feel cluttered and miserable and messy, like you can execute at a higher level because you're not implicitly bogged down by these things. Because you mentioned a little bit like performance, right? And from people and being happier in work. And so can you just like give a little more detail on that? Because I feel like I understand the aspects of how that can work, but not fully why.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess the simplistic way to kind of answer that is it conveys value that the company is giving to its employees, right? So if the company is spending time and energy to try to make their employees comfortable, that shows mutual respect, right? So on a subconscious level, the employee feels that. They might not see it or hear those words in their head directly, but subconsciously you feel it. And you can feel that when you go into a store, right? Like when you go into, say, a Dollar Tree compared to a Louis Vuitton store, right?
Mhm.
Like you get the feeling. Nobody says anything, nobody's done anything yet, but when you step inside, the environment does something to you. And a lot of people don't really realize that.
Future Fuzz is sponsored by SalesSource, B2B pipeline management and sales growth for your business.
Yeah, it kind of creates value, right? Implicitly.
Yes.
Yeah. That's such a fascinating thing. And then when you think about, yeah, retention, people wanting to come into the office, because you get all these hybrid plans and things like that. Like it's definitely an impact. And you think about how that can impact the culture that you're trying to build. So it's just such a fascinating thing in all those ways. And again, like going back to creativity, here's one of the main things that I consider when you think about like marketing, creative strategy, and the physical space is uh, did you ever see there was a documentary about Pixar that came out, I don't know, 10 years ago? And it was all about the very beginnings of Pixar, how they got started, everything going into Toy Story being made, and then how they like absolutely became a rocket ship after Toy Story went out. And the crazy thing about it that was so fun and exciting was that the office was crazy. I mean, this place, they had like giant stuffed snakes that had like, you know, like you would win at a carnival, like these giant blue snakes hanging off their cubicles, and people are riding scooters up and down the hallway. And they've got all these cartoon drawings that they've put up all over the walls. And like the place was alive. And to see all of these creative people and having that freedom because the environment told them they could be creative in that way, it seemed to give this like sort of dynamic element where it was feeding the people, which were then making the place more creative, which was then cycling it back. You know what I mean? It was just such a fascinating, like one charging the other because there was synergy between the people in the office and the physical space, the way it was designed.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And you definitely picked up on that. It was funny because during our early years, we got a chance to get into a lot of large successful companies. Like, for example, Google, we got into there and did some fun projects. And we got to see what was already established, right? And so in Google, they were the trendsetters at the time to open their campus like a college campus almost, right? Where you get to eat, you know, Chinese food or Indian food, you know, right there on campus, or you can, you know, go upstairs and play foosball and disconnect, right? It was just an environment of creativity. I can't speak to it now. I think it's been some changes, but when I was there, I got to walk around, experience it, and actually understand a lot more how those little things impact you, right? Because I look at it from a different lens, right? So I'm looking at it from my marketing, you know, psychological, you know, aspect of things. And I saw that they even had secret rooms. Like you can go into a room and there's a secret door and you go in and there's a secret conference room. They had game rooms that were, you know, just through funny doors, and it was just amazing. And so when you were talking about the environment feeding your creativity and vice versa, and how that goes back and forth for a synergetic effect, you're absolutely correct. There was a moment when we were in our early years and our office, it was just like the cobbler has no shoes for his family, right? Like
Mhm.
they're always working. That was our situation. We were constantly working, trying to get off the ground, and we didn't pay any attention to our office space. So we had papers and boxes, and it just looked like a madhouse, right? And we're like, oh, we'll get to it later. We'll do ours later. And finally, it got to the point where I was like, I'm not feeling creative anymore. Like this is sucking, you know, sucking me dry. So I got with my business partner. I was like, we got to fix this, or else, you know, our quality is going to diminish. So she's like, all right. So she gave me a budget. And so we did it. We transformed the office and instantly, like, it's like night and day. You step in, you feel refreshed, ideas started coming. And yeah, it was just a revitalization for us as a team.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those things too that's a major challenge, right? When you do creative work or you're doing these things where it's your passion and you're doing it day to day, I think there's times where you kind of lose that joy, right? It becomes, this is the work, this is the thing, this is all that I'm doing. And on some level, I don't even get to enjoy it anymore. Like when I was watching sports, when I was in sports radio, there were times where it was just like watching a football game was misery. You know, I have my notebook. I have to know, oh, they had this backup tackle in on 3rd and 5 and he had a bad play. And like, I wasn't enjoying the games. You know what I mean? It was like, it was just work. And I think people tend to, in any profession, can tend to get caught in that loop. And on some level, how have you been able to like maintain that sense of creativity and keep that going as you do this kind of work?
That's a great question, because as I was going through it, you don't know what you don't know, right? And as you're going through it, you're like, why am I feeling this way? Why am I having such a plateau? And then you start leaning on other designers to do stuff for you and, create ideas. And anyways, you're trying to figure it out. And what I ended up finding is that you need a reset, right? Like you can't just be running 100% all the time because you deplete. And I thought I was invincible, right? Like the younger you are, the more invincible you think you are. And, I guess over years, you just kind of, it gets pounded into you that you're not invincible. And so I just started finding little tricks and asking advice on from other people, other creatives. And I got kind of like a mixed soup of ideas and that I kind of put for myself. And so what I love doing is making sure that I'm doing something creative every day. And then I have a routine of doing something, creating art or some sort of piece every day. So I put little certain time blocks so that I maintain that and sharpen that skill, because it's definitely a muscle that needs to be exercised.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I get caught in bad habits. I mean, I love video games, and so it's just something I'll do. But then there's times where like I'll start a new round of a game that I'll play, and I'm just like, man, this is not helping me. Like I got to do something active for my brain that's like truly supportive, you know? So if it's like, I like to write is one of the things that I'll do. So it's not even necessarily anything. I'm not like working on a screenplay right now, but it's the idea of just, hey, I'm going to like draw up just a fun world, like a concept of a world or a fun character. I'm just going to write until I get bored of doing it, or make up some, bare bones story of some kind and play around with it. Like, it's just one of those things where it is good to break out of the box, get out of the habits and kind of push yourself, right? Like it's been fun to write and find these creative places of like, oh, I've never thought about this way, but maybe deep down there was something in me that was like, oh, okay, here's a philosophy you had that you didn't fully realize, and now here's how it plays out as some random story arc that you just created out of nowhere. So it is fun to do those kinds of things, and it's fun to have conversations like these. So thank you, by the way, for coming on the show. Appreciate being to go back and forth and talk about everything that you do at Nikos. So for people who want to learn more, what is the best way to do that?
Definitely. They can jump to our website, which is nikosmedia.com. And, if you're looking for any marketing or creative ideas for your company, we'll definitely help you out.
There you go. All right. Well, Santiago, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate the time.
Awesome. Thanks, Vince. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for tuning in and making the choice to listen to this podcast. If you liked what you've heard today, please don't forget to subscribe.